So I was in the office of a big-bellied Southern lawyer sitting across the desk having a conversation. I was there because he had sent letters, 4 letters to 4 of my elders complaining about my behavior. Didn't talk to me or send a letter to me. One of the elders brought it to me, so I went to go see him. So we started having a conversation. Turns out he was upset because his daughter had called to see if they could get the baby baptized. And I asked, why at Conyers Presbyterian? Among other questions. Apparently that question was offensive to her. She told her daddy. Her daddy wrote letters to the session, so I went to talk to him. They used to be involved in the church, but maybe showed up on Christmas these days. As we got talking, he shared his displeasure with me, shared his views on baptism. Now, I'm ordained as a minister of word and sacrament. 2 things. I'm not ordained as a CEO or manager. I'm not ordained as any of the other roles. I'm ordained to take care of the word, to study, to preach, to teach, and sacraments, baptism and the Lord's Supper. So I began to correct this old Southern lawyer on his views of baptism. He did not like being corrected. He stood up and said, "We're done." He kicked me out of the office. I stood up and said, "We're not done." I said, "You're big enough, you could pick me up and throw me out the window if you wanted to, but we're not done." I don't think he was used to people talking to him like that. He didn't know what to say. He sat back down and we had a discussion about baptism. And then later we had another meeting with the 4 elders at a conference table, me, and I was basically a whipping boy. I had to sit and listen to what this man said in front of the other elders and just take it. Sometimes that's what you got to do. You just got to take it. As we left his office with the 4 elders, they looked at me and said, "Good job." He kind of made a fool of himself. You did a good job. Ministry is not easy. I've done other jobs. I've worked in retail. I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in technology. Now, I know there's a lot of jobs with a lot of stress. I don't want to be a police officer. I got all the respect in the world for them. I don't want that stress. I don't want to be a medical doctor. All the respect in the world for doctors. I don't want that stress. There's a business owner. You own your own business, you got a stressful job. There's a lot of jobs that are stressful. But ministry is one of them. When we're in seminary, at least 20% of the folks that take jobs in churches don't last 5 years. They burn out, they're disillusioned, it's harder than they thought. And Jesus is getting at just that in this passage. Now, for me, when I worked in manufacturing, I'd go home afterwards, and if it was a tough day, I might complain. When I worked in technology, I didn't always have a great day either. Some of those were stressful. Ministry's different, though. Even on a bad day, for me, I can go home and reassure myself that I've been called, that God's with me in the good and the bad. And Jesus is getting at that in this particular passage. Now, I don't want to say that this is only about pastors, because it's not at all. It's about every one of you who makes any attempt to serve Jesus Christ and do ministry in this broken world. Jesus was ridiculed. Jesus was mocked. Jesus was crucified. And here he says, don't expect better behavior than the teacher gets. He was telling his disciples, you're going to go out and tell people a message that they don't want to hear. And it's true. It's the truth that you're sharing with them, but they're not going to react well to the truth. Some of them will and some of them won't. But you have to be prepared for that. He's telling his disciples, you're not going to be treated better than me. He's telling us when we do ministry in this broken world, we're not going to be treated better than Jesus Christ. He's telling us it's hard and to expect it to be hard when we do ministry in this world. People will not always understand you. People will not always appreciate you. People will not always support you. He tells us that it can divide even families. You know people who somewhere in life found Jesus. Or maybe they renewed their commitment to Jesus that they made long ago. And their children or their parents or their spouse think they've jumped off the deep end. We really don't like it when people change. We want them to stay the same. And here Jesus is reminding us that when we follow Jesus Christ, when we prioritize that relationship, it can impact other relationships. It can cause people to look at us funny. It can cause some of the closest to us to disagree and even turn away from us. He's telling this to the disciples, but he's telling us to us as well that it can cause division, not only among friends and family. Here's the thing, within a church, every church of every time. Paul started writing letters to churches 2,000 years ago, telling them they need to get along better. In every church, we try to discern the will of God and do that. But we don't always agree on how we discern the will of God or what God's calling us to do. So it really calls us to be aware of that going in, to expect it, and then to strive to live with each other, to work together, to find the common ground and do that ministry. Sounds like bad news. The reality of ministry, whether you're a pastor, a Sunday school teacher, a missionary, a cook, whatever, Jesus is telling us it's not easy. We love for it to be easy. We love for everybody to be happy. We love for everybody to be grateful for any ministry we do. But Jesus is telling us not to expect that. At a session meeting, the devotion recently was on Jesus healing 10 lepers. Transformed their lives, changed everything for them. One came back and said, thank you. A 10% return in ministry, pretty good. We don't do ministry for the thank you. We don't follow Jesus Christ assuming it's going to be easy. We do it because we feel called by Jesus Christ to serve him and to live it out in this world. And we have the promise here in this scripture that he loves us, that he cares for us, that he's with us, that he even pays attention to the sparrows. How much more then is he paying attention to us? There's a poem, why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home when Jesus is my portion? My constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow. I know he watches me. It was written in 1905. It's a beautiful hymn. It's a reminder that God cares about all of us, each one of us. His eye is on the sparrow. His eye is on everything He created, but that includes us as we walk through serving Jesus Christ. I invite you now to sing that particular hymn, His Eye is on the Sparrow.